Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all.
Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I talk about fantasy, Stephen King, all sorts of books, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit random because here's the thing. I have been having trouble getting motivated to do videos recently, and I'm super behind on reviews, so I thought I'd take care of a bunch of books at once by having a discussion about Owlcrate bookbacks. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I used to subscribe to like the YA Owlcrate bookbox, which was a YA fantasy book that came every month with a box of goodies. Then about a year ago, Owlcrate came out with this like adult box. Unfortunately, that box is just the book, no goodies. But for a while I did both, and then I canceled one, and now I'm only doing the adult version. And I think I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to tell you why. I have made it no secret that I've kind of been struggling with the YA Owlcrate bookbox books. The three most recent ones that I've read are The Whispering Dark by Kelly Andrew, The Last Bloodcarver by Vanessa Lee, and most recently, The Poison Season by Maya Rutherford. Out of these three, I would say The Last Bloodcarver is the only one that I actually liked. The other two I had some pretty significant issues with. These two books basically follow the same formula that every Owlcrate YA bookbox book follows. And that is, we have a young female protagonist who, of course, is either, super kind and super sweet, super special in some way, and regardless of what their situation is, they meet a boy, they fall hopelessly in love. Yes, because romance is always part of the A storyline. And that is something that has come to really annoy me about these books. In this book in particular, I actually was really excited about this one because this book was advertised as featuring a deaf character, a hearing impaired character. So even though she does have a cochlear implant, so she can hear noise like she can't hear on her own, but yet she hears the whispers of the dead. I thought that was a super cool setup. However, the actual plot and the romance made this one a bit of a dud for me. And the same thing with The Poison Season. Here we have this magical, enchanted island where outsiders aren't allowed, and if outsiders get in, they're killed. So we have a young girl, and of course our main character is kind of she doesn't believe in the whole killing thing. So when a handsome young boy goes to the island by mistake and she meets him, of course, she doesn't kill him. She saves him. They fall in love. So again, in both of these books, you have a case where you have a character, a main character, who, I don't know, these female characters just feel so similar. They feel so the same, even though they're completely different and in completely different situations, if that makes any sense at all. I will say that The Last Bloodcarver, this is the only one where I feel like the main character is a bit different because she is a thief. She's kind of grown up on the street. So even though she's quote unquote a good person, she's very scrappy and she's very stubborn and she's very selfish at times, which I feel like I like this type of character better. I feel like it's more real because when you have a character like the main character in The Poison Season, it's you're growing up in this town surrounded by people who are totally okay with getting rid of people they don't like, either by sending them off or by killing them. So it's really weird that just this one girl would be oh, I'm against that. That feels weird. Where The Last Bloodcarver, it makes sense that she would be, that the main character here would be a little bit more scrappy. She just feels more real and more nuanced. When characters are all good or all bad. Like, that doesn't work for me. I want to see those shades of gray. And The Last Bloodcarver is the only place that I actually see those shades of gray. And again, even in The Whispering Dark, again, our character here, our main character, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, Delaney Lane, even she is like that. She's like totally good, totally kind, like she's totally, you know, the female protagonist. She's the good character. But I feel like, again, I am more drawn to characters that are more deep and complex and nuanced than that. Now let me talk for a second about the actual plot of these books. Like I mentioned before, we do have a situation where romance is part of the main plot. So in The Whispering Dark, like I said, we have our main character. She's deaf. She hears whispers of dead people. And she's at a school where some of the students are turning up dead. And there might be some, you know, ghosties involved. She starts to investigate. There's an upperclassman that she's like supposed to stay away from, but of course they're drawn to each other, and shenanigans ensue. So on one hand, like, again, I thought this was going to be deep and complex and nuanced because of the way that the book advertised featuring disabilities, but unfortunately, that is not what happened. I feel like by the end of the book, you forget that the character has a disability at all, which I thought was really strange. And on one hand, I could see how, like, the character doesn't want to be defined by that, right? So I can understand why you don't want to, like, automatically think of the character as being disabled. But, like, I was hoping to hear more about her experience, and that didn't happen. There were parts in the book where I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot this character is supposed to be deaf, because it's like stops getting mentioned. So by the back half of the book, it basically just kind of turns into a generic ghost story, which for me, I was kind of like, okay, like, it's fine. But again, I look for something a little bit more. The Poison Season. I've talked about this one because it's the one I read most recently in a wrap-up. So yeah, so there's a enchanted island. Guy comes to an island. It's an accident. Meets a young girl, and the girl is like trying to help him because if he gets discovered, he's going to be killed, because she was supposed to kill him, but she didn't, because she's good and kind and sweet, unlike everyone else on the island. But also there's like all this weird family dynamic stuff going on, and yada yada yada, and there's secrets about this island. So like on the surface, like it sounds cool, but again, it ends up being just this simple love story, really. And the main characters here, not deep, not nuanced, not complex at all. In fact, I find this one particularly bizarre because the characters are so sweet and so cutesy, and the way that the book is written, the actual writing is so cutesy and so cozy, but the plot is about killing people. So I feel like those two things do not go together, and it does not work. I find it incredibly bizarre. And finally, The Last Bloodcarver. This is the only one I actually enjoyed. So we have a young girl that has this unique ability where basically she is a healer, but she has to like touch you in order to heal you. And the way that the healing is explained is it's actually explained through like medical science and anatomy. Like the author explains that like if you're having a headache and she touches you and she can rearrange your nerve endings to make that go away, like the way that she clears your blood to make you healthier, like it is very like scientific and very anatomically correct, which I found really fascinating. So like I said, our young girl, she's kind of a thief living on the street, scrappy. There is a murder in this wealthy family, and because the family doesn't want anyone to know that this murder happened, they end up calling on our Bloodcarver to like try and heal someone that's in a coma that can help identify, you know, who the murderer is. So she gets pulled off the street into this, like, you know, wealthy house with politics and, you know, intrigue, where she's trying to heal this guy that's in a coma. So it's testing the limits of her ability. But there's also like the whole murder mystery aspect. Who killed the patriarch of the house? What are they trying to gain? So I feel like this book has a lot going on, right? It's got politics going on, it's got classism going on, it's got magic going on, it's got science going on. It has a lot going on. And like I said, yes, there is a romance in it because it's a YA book, so of course there is. But at the end of the day, because I thought that the character was complex and nuanced and the plot was complex and nuanced, that's why I like this one better. But unfortunately, as much as I liked this one, I feel like this one is the exception to the rule. So ultimately, this is what led me to canceling my YA Owlcrate book box subscription. Generic characters. I'm tired of every book having a romance be like the A storyline. And yeah, just the simplicity of these tales was just not doing it for me anymore. Now, I have been hemming and hawing about the adult books as well, so let me switch and talk about those for a minute. Okay, so even though I have been getting the adult books for a little bit, I've actually only read 3 of them so far, and those are Starling House by Alix Harrow, Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, and Bride by Ali Hazlewood. Out of these 3, 2 I really liked, 1 I did not. The one I didn't like was Immortal Longings, which I did a recent kind of rant review about this one that I will link above that you can go and watch. But Starling House and Bride, I really, really enjoyed. I don't have my copy of Starling House on me at the moment, so I'll put a picture up of it somewhere. So when it comes to these adult Owlcrate books, there are 2 things that I noticed right away about them. Even though I didn't like Immortal Longings, I did appreciate that the romance is not part of the A storyline. Yes, there is a romance in there, but it is the B storyline, not the A storyline. Same thing with Starling House. Starling House, the romance is the B storyline, not the A storyline. I can't say that about Bride because this book is a romantic fantasy, a supernatural romance, but that's because that's what it is supposed to be. It is supposed to be a romance. Immortal Longings is not supposed to be a romance. It's supposed to be a dystopian science fiction story. Starling House is supposed to be a gothic haunted house story. Neither of those 2 have, you know, romance in the genre, whereas this one actually does. So that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing is that, yes, thankfully, because these are adult stories, the characters are more deep, complex, and nuanced. Even though I didn't care for some of the characters in Immortal Longings, I still feel that that is true. So I'm going to focus on Bride right now because this is the book that I've probably talked about the least out of the 3 of those. So the basic setup of this story is that we have our main character. Her name is Misery, and she is the daughter of like the head of the vampires in this town. And one day she gets called into Daddy's office, and Daddy says like, hey, we need to make this political alliance with the local, you know, werewolf pack. So I'm going to basically send you off to the alpha werewolf to get married. So even though she's never met this guy before, has no idea, and never spent any time with werewolves, she agrees to it. And at first you're like, why would she agree to this arranged marriage? Well, it's because that her very best friend, who happens to be a human, has recently gone missing. Maybe it hasn't been that recent. Her best friend has gone missing, and the only clue that she has to like what could have possibly happened to her friend is this one piece of evidence that suggests that maybe there was some werewolf involvement. So that's why she agrees to this marriage, because she's hoping to find out something about her friend. So once she goes to live with the werewolves, live in this, you know, complex, basically, She gets to meet all of the members of the werewolf clan, and of course, the alpha werewolf is not what she expected. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? Like, that's where all the romance comes in. I mean, it's on the cover. I don't think that's really a spoiler. Long story short, I love books that have like multiple genres and multiple tropes going on, and this one really does. Not only do we have a supernatural romance, we also have a mystery, like a missing person, a mystery happening, which is really, really fun. And I love how Misery, like the way that she gets to know all the members of the werewolf pack and like gets to find her way around the complex is because she's actually investigating. Like, she's trying to find clues. Like, she's not a damsel in distress. She has actual agency, which I think is really, really cool. And then, of course, the more she gets to know Lowell, his name is, the alpha werewolf, you know, like, I don't know. They are so cute as a couple. If you are reading this for the romance, it is a slow burn. It is a slow burn. It's kind of a will they won't they type situation, but let me say it does get steamy at points. This is an adult book for a reason, so I would say those reasons are definitely because of the steam, the deep and complex characters, and the nuanced story. And just to throw it in here, I think the same is true about Starling House as well. The main character in Starling House she's still a young girl, but because she's had such a hard, difficult life, so her mother died when she was young, so she's been taking care of her younger brother for a long time. And they kind of live in this crappy motel. They don't really have a lot of money, so she's always scrimping and saving, and she's very scrappy, very resourceful, but she's also very damaged. She's very damaged from this difficult life that she's had. And it's not to say that I like damaged characters, but I like characters with flaws. And I think that she has flaws. I think that Misery has flaws. If you read the book, they're more emotional flaws, but I think, like, you can say that about anyone. Like, all of us have flaws, so that's what I like so much about these characters. Even the main character in Immortal Longings, even though I didn't like this book overall, main character definitely has flaws. So I totally prefer this type of female character compared to the YA ones that are just very one note, they're either like manic pixie dream girl or they're super special and they don't really have flaws, or if they do, they're not really that big. The truth is, like, people with flaws are beautiful. We all have flaws, so I am just way more drawn and way more connected to characters that actually have them and overcome them, have them and acknowledge them, have them and work with them. So all of that to say, yeah, I really loved Starling House. I really loved Bride. And no, I didn't really love Immortal Longings, but that's okay. You can't win a ball. I'm pretty sure that at least Bride and Starling House, both of these books have a very good chance of being on my top 10 for the year. It's hard to say which one I like better because they're completely different. I would say from a fun factor, I think Bride is the funner book. As far as like having more of an emotional impact, maybe Starling House. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because I really love both of them. So just to recap here, even though both the YA and adult have books I like and books I didn't like, I'm not going back to YA. I'm just not. The characters are too simple, the plots are too straightforward, and I am done with all the gag-inducing romance. On the other hand, the adult books that I've read so far tend to have more deep and nuanced characters, more exciting plots, and not necessarily have romance as the A storyline. Yes, except for Bride, because this is literally a romance book, but the other ones are not, and romance is not the A storyline, it's the B storyline, so that makes my point. But of course, you can tell me if you disagree. So that is all for me today, how I've been doing with my Owlcrate book box books, and I've talked about some books I haven't reviewed yet, so that's exciting. I can check those off my list. Swiper is excited too, aren't you, Swiper? So now I want to know from you, have you read any Owlcrate books? Do you subscribe to any other book boxes that you would recommend? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section below. Okay, Swiper, you can go. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff, hopefully, coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading.